You read one critical comment, buried under 50 kind ones, and somehow it's the only sentence your brain keeps replaying at 2 in the morning. You know it's irrational. You can even say it out loud to yourself, and yet you can't quite make it stop. Why does one stranger's opinion outweigh 50 others so easily? This isn't a character flaw. It isn't proof that you're too sensitive. It's an alarm system that is millions of years older than the comment section itself. For roughly 99% of human history, what other people thought of you wasn't a feeling. It was a survival resource, measured constantly with real consequences attached to every shift in it. Let's start with how small your ancestors' world actually was. British anthropologist Robin Dunbar studied primate brains and noticed a pattern. Species with a larger neocortex, the wrinkled outer layer of the brain responsible for complex thought, tended to live in larger social groups. His conclusion, known as the social brain hypothesis, suggested something striking. Much of human intelligence didn't evolve to solve abstract puzzles. It evolved to track relationships, reputations, and trust. In a group of maybe 30 to 150 people with no written records, no resumes, and no background checks, there was only one way to know who was trustworthy. You had to remember what people thought of them, and they had to remember what people thought of you. So what actually happened to someone whose reputation collapsed? Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying small-scale hunter-gatherer societies and arrived at an answer that's easy to miss from the comfort of a modern courtroom. These societies had no police, no judges, and no formal laws written anywhere. What they had instead was gossip, public criticism, ridicule, and, when necessary, exclusion. Boehm's research, detailed in his work on the origins of human morality, described how a person who repeatedly hoarded meat, bullied weaker members, or refused to cooperate could be talked about behind their back until their reputation was effectively destroyed. Food sharing could quietly stop. Invitations to hunt could dry up. In the most extreme and repeated cases, a group could decide to drive that person out entirely. And in a world without supermarkets, hospitals, or neighboring towns to walk to, losing your group's good opinion of you wasn't an inconvenience. It was very often a death sentence. This means something important about how your brain evolved to weigh other people's opinions. It didn't evolve to weigh them gently. It evolved to treat them as urgent. Now, not every opinion carried equal weight, even back then. Why would a comment from your closest hunting partner matter more than a comment from someone 3 bands away that you'd never meet again? Researcher Joseph Henrich, who studies how human culture spreads and accumulates across generations, found that humans don't pay attention to everyone's opinion equally. We're wired with what's called prestige-biased learning, a tendency to weigh the views of respected, skilled, or high-status individuals far more heavily than the views of strangers or low-status group members. This made enormous sense in small ancestral bands. The best hunter's opinion about strategy was worth more than a child's. The most respected elder's judgment about a dispute carried more authority than a newcomer's, but it isn't only prestigious opinions that pull at you. Even an opinion you privately disagree with can quietly override what your own eyes are telling you. In the 1950s, psychologist Solomon Asch ran a deceptively simple experiment. He asked participants to judge which of several lines matched a reference line in length, an obvious easy task with an answer almost impossible to get wrong on your own. But there was a twist. Each participant sat in a small group where everyone else, secretly working with Asch, confidently gave the wrong answer out loud, one after another. Roughly 3/4 of participants, at least once, abandoned the clear evidence in front of their own eyes and agreed with the group's wrong answer instead. Not because they were stupid, because some deep old part of them weighed the group's opinion as more trustworthy than its own perception. If a roomful of strangers in a laboratory with nothing at stake could pull people away from the evidence of their own eyes, imagine what the opinion of your actual tribe could do when food, safety, and belonging were genuinely on the line. So picture an evening on the savannah, perhaps 80,000 years ago. A young hunter returns from a failed hunt, empty-handed for the 3rd time this month. Around the fire, an older respected member of the group makes a single comment about his carelessness. It isn't shouted. It doesn't need to be. The young hunter feels his stomach tighten in a way that has nothing to do with hunger. Everyone heard it. By morning, in a group this small, everyone will have an opinion about it too. His standing, whether people will trust him with the next hunt, whether a family might consider him for marriage, whether he'll be remembered as reliable or as a liability, just shifted slightly in front of the only society he has access to. There is no separate private self he can retreat to where that opinion doesn't matter. In a band of 30 people, the group's opinion of him functionally is his reputation, his safety net, and his future all at once. Here's the counterintuitive twist your brain still hasn't caught up with. You'd expect that in a modern world of 8 billion strangers, where one anonymous comment from someone you'll never meet has zero actual power over your food, shelter, or safety, your brain would learn to simply ignore it. It doesn't. Your nervous system has no built-in setting for "this opinion comes from someone who has absolutely no influence over my actual life." It only has a much older setting. Another human is judging me, and judgment from other humans has always meant something. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger and her colleagues found, using brain imaging, that social rejection activates the anterior cingulate cortex, a brain region also activated by physical pain. Being criticized, excluded, or negatively judged doesn't just feel unpleasant in some loose metaphorical sense. To the oldest parts of your brain, it registers as a genuine injury. This is also why negative opinions tend to stick so much harder than positive ones. An ancestor who underestimated one piece of criticism, one warning that their reputation and therefore their safety was slipping, paid for that mistake far more severely than an ancestor who overreacted to a harmless comment. Across thousands of generations, the overly cautious brain won, and you inherited it. So when one critical comment outweighs 50 kind ones, that isn't a malfunction. That's a precisely calibrated ancient alarm, sounding exactly as loudly as it was designed to. Notice how this plays out today in places your ancestors could never have imagined. A product with 500 five-star reviews and 3 one-star reviews still makes you hesitate, lingering on exactly those 3. A meeting full of nods can be undone by a single raised eyebrow you can't stop thinking about afterward. A piece of writing you're proud of can feel ruined by one dismissive line in the comments, even while dozens of generous ones sit just above it, unread a second time. None of this is because you've made those reviewers, that eyebrow, or that one comment more powerful than they actually are. It's because the part of your brain doing the calculating still believes it's sitting at a campfire of 30, where every single opinion was data that could change whether you ate tomorrow. This is the part most people get backwards. We treat caring about other people's opinions as something to be cured, a weakness to train away with enough confidence or enough indifference. But for nearly the entire span of human existence, tracking other people's opinions of you with total seriousness was one of the most adaptive things a person could do. The individuals who didn't care, who shrugged off a damaged reputation, who ignored the warning signs and how a group was starting to talk about them, often didn't survive long enough or stay welcome long enough to pass that indifference on. You are descended almost entirely from people who took other people's opinions of them very, very seriously. So the next time a single comment keeps you awake while 50 kind ones disappear without a trace, you're not broken and you're not weak. You're listening to a system built around a campfire that vanished thousands of years ago, still running exactly the way it was built to run, in a world it was never designed for. You read one critical comment buried under 50 kind ones, and your whole night changes because of it. That was never irrational. It's the oldest piece of social wiring you own, and it has been keeping people exactly like you alive and welcome for far longer than there have been comment sections to read at all.